How's it going, guys? Welcome back to another exciting video, and in this video we're going to continue where we left off. So in the last video we did some of these settings in this session auth application. Also in the last video, after I was doing the editing, I noticed I made a little typo. So that was right here, rest framework dot permissions dot is authenticated. I put an extra S here by accident, so this should be permissions dot is authenticated, because that would have caused issues later down the road, I guess. So let's go ahead and continue off. We're gonna deal with these root URLs now. I'll remove these comments, we don't need them. We won't need any admin, so I'll remove that. And we will need paths. So first thing, in order to have REST framework work in this application, I have to add a path here, which will be API-auth/, and then I'm going to include, and I have to make sure I bring in include. So right here, then I'm going to use that, and I'm going to put in here, in quotes, rest_framework.urls. All right, so now we're going to have more paths. One's going to be for URLs in our accounts app, and one's going to be for URLs in our user profile. Now we also have to actually create these files, so I'll quickly do that now. So in accounts, I'll create a file, urls.py. We're gonna work on that in a bit. And then in user profile, same thing, so urls.py. And then in here, you can just do something like from Django.urls, import path, and then create URL patterns, which is going to be a list. And then we're going to work on this a little later. And I'll just copy the same thing inside of user profile. So we'll deal with these two files a little later. For now, just going to have that urls.py so that I can actually bring it in here. So I'll do path. So for accounts, I'm going to do accounts/, that's going to be the URL path. And then I'm going to include accounts.urls. So we just created this URLs file, so now I can actually access it with this. And then I'm also going to have paths for the user profile. I'll just do profile/ for the URL, and this will be user_profile.urls. And then the last thing I'm going to do here is just have a catch-all URL. This is going to be for our React application, because we're going to have React Router doing the routing in our front end, and then in our back end, we're just going to have kind of a catch-all, which is going to just let React take over and do those routes. So I'll do URL patterns plus equals, and then I'm going to need to bring in regular expression path, because we're going to create a regular expression path. That way we can actually have a catch-all route. And then I'm going to create our regular expression, and it's just going to be hat.star. So this is how you do a regular expression for a catch-all. And then I'm going to have a template view, which I have to bring in. So from Django.views.generic, import template view. And then I'm going to do .asView. And then template_name is going to be index.html. So there you go. So now this right here is going to find that index.html file that's going to be in our build folder when we build our React application. And then this here is going to be a catch-all route that's going to pretty much let React Router take over. So that is our URLs. So next thing I'm going to do is just quickly work on the model for the user profile. So how this is going to work is whenever we sign up for an account, And in this application, I'm not using any custom user model. I'm just using the default Django user model. And then whenever we sign up for a user, we want to connect the user profile to their account. So what I'm going to do is basically set up this model, and then when I do the sign up view, I'm going to then create the profile and hook it up to the user. So first thing I need to do is actually bring in the user model because I'm going to be using it. So Django.contrib.auth.models is where it comes from, where I'm going to import user. Then I'm going to create the user profile model. So class user profile is what I'm going to call it. Then models.model. And then I'm going to have a few fields here. So first one is going to be the user field. So user, this is just going to link this user profile to the user model. And then the way I'm going to do this is do models.one-to-one field, pass in the user, and then on delete will be models.cascade. So basically every user has a single model that they're hooked up to. I'm sorry, every user has a single profile model that they're hooked up to, and every user profile has a user that they're hooked up to. So it's a one-to-one relationship. You don't have multiple profiles for a user, and you don't have multiple users for a single profile. Every user has their own individual profile. And that's why we're using the one-to-one field, and then we pass in the user. That's what makes this connection. And then this on delete equals models.cascade. This means that if the user gets deleted, this profile will also get deleted and be removed from the database. And that's kind of a behavior that you want. Sometimes you're going to do models.do-nothing. So this can sometimes be useful if maybe you have some kind of comments or something, or reviews that are hooked up to a user, and if the user deletes their account, you want that data to stay, then you can do nothing. But in this case, we want the profile. So cascade. In this case, it makes more sense to have the user profile deleted if the user is deleted. So that's why we're doing the cascade. And then I'm going to have first name. This will be models.character field. The max length, I'm going to set to 255, and default, I'll set to an empty string here. And I'll copy this down a few more times just to make it go a little faster. So I'll have last name, I'll have phone, and I'll have city. So yeah, these are just some random attributes here I picked for the user profile. Of course, you can pick whatever you want. I just had a few just to have a profile, but you can add many more things here. And then for the phone, I'll make the max length a little less. I'll have it be 20, and same thing for the city. So there we go. Now we have our user profile model created. And actually, maybe another thing I can do is I can do define string self, and then return self dot, let's say, first name. So this is just the string representation of this model. All right, so with that, let's now move on to the accounts app. So first, I'm just gonna start working on the views. Okay, so I don't need this here. And let's start working on, let's say, the sign up view. So class sign up view, API view. So I'm going to be using this API view. So I have to bring that in. So this is from rest_framework dot views import API view. All right, and then for this view here, I want to set the permission classes to be allow any, because by default in our application, if we go to the settings, So right down here, so we have the default permission classes is that the user has to be authenticated. But if they're going to sign up, it doesn't make sense for them to be authenticated, so we want to set permissions otherwise. So basically, we have to import permissions. This comes from Rest Framework, and then you just import permissions, and then you can set the permissions here. So do that with permission classes, and then you make a tuple, which you do permissions dot allow any, and then make sure you have a comma here, because this is a thing in Python. If you have a tuple with one item, it has to have a comma or it'll throw an error. All right, and then this is going to be a post request. So I'm going to define post, pass in self, request, format equals none. And then in here, I'm going to get some data. This is going to come from self.request.data. Oh. And then I'm going to have a username, data, username. And then password, it's going to be data, password. Then you're going to have a repassword so that they have to retype their password. And this will be repassword. And then here I'm going to have an if check if password is equal to password, or sorry, repassword. Then basically I'm going to continue doing some checks. If this is not the case, then we're going to return a response, which is going to be an error. And it's just going to say passwords do not match. Otherwise, we're going to continue with the checks. So now I'm going to check basically if the user account exists. So I can do that with user.objects.filter, username equals username. So it's going to check the username that was passed in this post request, and if it finds one, so you do that with exists. Then we're going to return a response. It's going to be an error. And it's just going to say username already exists, let's say. Otherwise, we're going to continue on. And we're going to actually... One thing I'm going to do is just maybe check if the password length is less than 6. So maybe that's another error I can handle. So if length of password is less than 6, then I can return a response, which is going to be an error. And it's just going to say password must be at least 6 characters. And then otherwise, we're going to go ahead and create this user. So I'm going to do user is equal to user.objects.create user. And then I'm going to create this user by passing the username and the password. So username equals username, password equals password. And then I'm going to save that user. So user.save. And this will create our user. So now after we create the user, I also want to create the user profile that is connected to this user we just created. That way when they log in, they already have a profile that they can start editing. So I'm going to do user profile. It's going to be user profile. So this model we have to now actually bring in. So I'll do it right over here. From user profile.models import user profile. So this way I can actually utilize it. And then within here, I'm going to do, I'm basically going to pass in the user. So first I need to actually get an instance of that user. So I'll do user is user.objects.get where username is username. And then I'm going to pass in that user here. And then first name will be empty. Last name will be empty. And then phone will also be empty. And city will also be empty. And then I'm going to do user profile.save. And then after all this, I'm going to return a response, which will just be a success message. And this way we know everything went okay. So user created successfully. All right. So this should be good. Okay, so right now we have the signup view, and the way that Django Rest Framework kind of handles things, even if you have session authentication, it's not going to enforce a view where the permission is allow any to have a CSRF token. So right now this signup view isn't CSRF protected. So let's see how we can go ahead and CSRF protect this route. So you're gonna have to import a few things from django.views.decorators.csrf. You want to import ensure CSRF cookie, and you want to import CSRF protect. So these are two things we're going to need, and then we're going to put that decorator right above this view. So method decorator, there we go, CSRF protect, and then name dispatch. And then this is going to ensure that we need a CSRF token in order to actually access this. All right, so now we need a way to actually get a CSRF token. So the thing with React, it's basically, so the thing with React, we need to have a way to get, so the thing with React is that it dynamically loads forms, and so we need a way to actually get a CSRF token in our React application. So the way I'm going to do this is by creating a view that we can access to get a CSRF token. So I'm going to call this get CSRF token. It'll be an API view. And then this is also going to have permission classes. This is going to be allow any. So I'll just go ahead and copy this. This is going to be a get. So self request format none. And then within here, it's just going to be very simple. It's going to be return response success CSRF cookie set. And now we need to actually make it so that when we access this route, we get a CSRF cookie that's set for us. So the way that we can do this is we can add a decorator. So method decorator. Also, I just realized I have to import this method decorator, which I'm going to do after I write this out. So ensure CSRF cookie name equals dispatch. So when we access this, we're going to get a CSRF cookie in our application. So that's also why I brought this ensure CSRF cookie here. And then I'm going to have to bring in method decorator. So this is from django.utils.decorators. I want to import method decorator. All right, so now we have these views set up. So we should be able to now actually sign up into this application. So let's see how this works. So I'm going to navigate into my backend. I'm going to do source vem bin activate and make sure you're running your server, your database. And now we're going to run the server. So python manage.py run server. And I also have migrations I have to run, so I'll do that quickly. So make migrations. Then I'll migrate everything and then run the server. All right, so now let's test things out in Postman. Oh, and also I have to set up the URLs. That's something I forgot to do. So otherwise, we can't actually make requests to this yet. So, right up here, there we go. So from .views, I'm going to import the signup view I created and also the get CSRF token. And then I'm going to have a path. This one's going to be register. So I'm going to do accounts/register. Then that's going to be for the signup view. Make sure you do as view since these are class-based views. And then I'm also going to have, let's see, we can call this CSRF cookie. So this will be accounts/CSRF cookie. And then we'll do get CSRF token dot as view. And then this will set up our URLs that we can now access. So let's go ahead and give this a try. So localhost 8000, accounts, CSRF cookie. This is going to be a GET request. And one thing I'm going to do is just clear my cookies I already have from testing stuff previously. So right now I can have a clean slate. And let's go ahead and get a CSRF cookie. All right, so what is going wrong here? Yes, response is not defined, so I have to make sure I import response in my view. Forgot to do that. We can do that right here. From Rest Framework dot response import response. All right. Now let's test this out again. And there we go. Success CSRF cookie set. And we can see now we have a CSRF token. So now let's go ahead and try to sign up. So I'm going to copy this token. So make sure you copy that. And I'm also going to save this. And I'll save this in the session auth folder I created. And this will be get CSRF token. And then I'm going to have a post request, http://localhost 8000 accounts and register. All right, so we're going to need content type, application, JSON. We're going to pass some data. So username, password, and repassword. So username, I'll do something like John Doe, let's say. Create a password of password. Let's first test if they do not match. And we're also going to test whether this route is CSRF protected. So that's technically going to be the first test. And there we go. We get a 403 forbidden. So if we didn't put this decorator, right now we would not be getting a 403 forbidden. This would do our sign up. So we have to put this in order to actually protect this with a CSRF token. So right now we have this cookie in here, but that's not enough. So when you're making a post request, you have to pass in something else here. You want to pass x-CSRF token. And then paste that in here. And there we go. Now we're actually accessing that view. So we've bypassed that 403 forbidden. And now we're kind of in that view. We're catching that where it checked whether our passwords match. Let's test something like if they do match, but they're not at least 6 characters. And we're getting some other error here, name error. So let's see what happened. User is not defined. Okay, so that's another thing I have to bring in here. So from django.contrib.auth.models import user. Now let's try that again. So password must be at least 6 characters. Perfect. Now let's go ahead and do something that'll work. And we're getting a type error now. Okay. Field ID expected a number, but got user John Doe. Okay. So this is what we can do instead. So we're going to do user dot. So yeah, we're going to do it like this. And now that will actually hook up the user profile correctly to the user. So yeah, now we have a successful sign-up view where we create the user and we create the profile. Except right now I don't think the profile is connected to the user I just made, but that's fine because we'll delete this user later anyway, once we create our delete view. But yeah, that'll be everything for this video. So hope you enjoyed and learned a few new little tricks here with the session authentication, and we'll continue off in the next video implementing the rest of this backend. So I will see you then. And also forgot to mention, but make sure you like and subscribe. Please do that.